India has one of the world's largest populations, and it is also the world's third largest producer of greenhouse gases, mainly from exhaust pipes. India in recent years has been making great strides to reduce their carbon footprint drastically and slow their contribution to global warming. India's GT carbon dioxide emissions is 3.2 as of 2014. They also contribute 7% of global CO2 emissions from fossil fuels, and their emissions per capita is 1.9% as of 2015. This is significantly smaller than other countries. For example, the US contributes about 16.1% per capita.
Climate change greatly affects India, and the consequences have become prevalent as carbon emissions rise in the country. For example, extreme heat. India is already experiencing a warming climate with unpredictable spells of hot weather predicted to occur more often and affect larger areas of India. If India were to undergo a 4 degrees Celsius warming, parts of India, west coast and southern India, would shift to high temperature climate regimes, impacting the architectural industry greatly. Changing rainfall patterns. There are unpredictable rainfall patterns in India, like the monsoon rainfall, which has decreased since the 1950s, yet the occurrence of heavy rainfall events has increased. Sudden changes in rainfall can result in major crises due to extreme droughts or flooding. Yearly water shortages or floods due to unpredicted rainfall amounts threaten crop yields, leading to food insecurity throughout India. Productions of crops such as rice and wheat are predicted to undergo restrictions. According to the World Bank, under 2 degrees Celsius warming by the 2050s, the country may need to import more than twice the amount of food grain that would be required without climate change. Lastly, there is the issue of exhaust fumes from cars in India. With the growing population, there is a higher demand for more cars, which results in a higher level of carbon in the air, which greatly affects the health of people and children.
India has proven to be very involved on the international climate change scene. India has agreed to the latest amendment to the Kyoto Protocol. This amendment adds restrictions to contaminant greenhouse gases and revises the list of greenhouse gases to be restricted. India's agreement to the Kyoto Protocol reaffirms its position on climate change and its dedication to prevention of further damage. India's agreement to the Copenhagen Accord states that it will cut emissions by 20 to 25% of its 2005 levels by 2020. India is also in favor of the commitments made through the Paris Agreement and has vowed to cut their carbon emissions. India has put into place the Clean Energy Act to lower the level of pollution they are pumping into the air. The Paris Agreement has proved to be the most successful in jump-starting India's action to reduce their contribution to greenhouse gases.
India is pushing for more renewable energy to slow carbon emissions in New Delhi. The largest contributor to pollution is from vehicles, which releases carbon monoxide and hydrocarbons into the air, which creates a thick smog over the city. The WHO states that the air quality of India is possibly the worst in the world. The Delhi-based Center for Science and Environment states people in Delhi are rapidly adding cars every day to the already polluted and crowded India. They add about 1,400 cars every day. The pollution is making people, and especially children, very ill. India is pushing for solar power and more renewable energy sources to solve this problem. They are also attempting to use vehicles that emit less exhaust fumes.
Indian Prime Minister Modi, during a visit to Berlin, stood alongside German Chancellor Angela Merkel and said that failing to act on climate change was a, quote, morally criminal act. This demonstrates the Prime Minister's attitude towards climate change and what must be done to stop it. India has set several goals for climate change action. First, India aims to reduce overall carbon emissions by 33 to 35% by 2030 from their 2005 levels. They seek to accomplish this primarily through renewable energy. Specifically, they want 40% of the nation's electricity to come from renewable sources such as solar and wind power. The government of India has already been pushing solar energy on private companies through incentive programs. India is also trying to reverse their history of deforestation. With a constantly growing population, forests have been wiped out at an astounding pace. India first looks to cap deforestation, and then reversing the effects by planting new forests and trees in residential areas. India is aiming to improve water efficiency by 20%, as the nation does struggle with clean water. One of India's main concerns is the melting of the Himalayan glaciers. They aim to accomplish all of this by allocating large portions of government funds towards the Climate Research Fund. Although India remains one of the world's largest carbon emitters, its efforts to move towards renewable energy and lowering carbon emissions far surpass the efforts of other states, such as the US. India's leadership has demonstrated the significance that climate change holds in the nation. India faces a large set of challenges when it comes to modernizing their energy production. India's large and constantly growing population makes it difficult to shift the entire nation towards sustainability. This, along with struggles for funding, makes India's task a very challenging one. Despite this, if India remains on track, they will be in alignment with the Paris Agreement in about 8 years. Despite their disadvantages, India has shown initiative when it comes to modernizing their energy production, so their overall climate change efforts have shown serious promise.